you could only watch one 49ers player. You spent
Mm.
an hour at practice this week, or one of the days. Like, which one would you watch the whole practice?
I think I probably would go Renardo Green actually.
Okay.
And he had a really interesting day yesterday. And I know he was kind of on the wrong end of some of those Juwan Jennings catches from Brock Purdy. Again, not making too much of this. Renardo Green is a guy who is a physical player, and playing press is a big part of his game. You can't do that when you're not in pads and you don't not even wearing helmets for chunks of this. So he's at an inherent disadvantage, as most of the defense is at this time of year. But I do think that, the way they are trying to line up that defensive backfield is in a way that they're going to have Diamador Lenore, if they can, keep him outside. And if that's the case, then I think a lot of teams are going to try to target Renardo Green. And when I watched Green last year, especially in camp, I made note of it a few times. I said, he's really talented. He's sticky in coverage. He's a little bit handsy, though. He gets, I could see where he'd be a guy who racks up some penalties. And he did that early when he first started playing, but he got better as the year went on. Those penalty numbers came down, and he wasn't getting the flags as much. But I think he is going to be a kind of a sneaky key to this defense. And I also think, we talk about this run defense and how bad it was last year. Even particularly when you look at terms of like EPA for opponents when they're on rushing plays, they were, I think, 28th in the league or something like that. But I think they struggled to set edges, but they also didn't get as much run support from the corners as they usually do. And I think that was something that was kind of underrated, that was missing. But so that's someone who I think maybe not even just through OTAs, but as we get into training camp, if he can take that big leap from year one to year two, they have a really nice combination of young corners on the outside there,
Yeah.
and they could be set up well to actually make some plays and get some takeaways, because as we know, toward the end of last year, that was non-existent.
Isn't it funny? Like, it is. It feels like a polar opposite group in the secondary from a physical, from a height standpoint, to like the
Yeah.
early solid defense, right? Which was all those Seahawks guys.
Yeah, it is. It's like a tougher, spicier. That's not to say the previous guys were tough, but just like the makeup of those guys, that kind of mentality that they're looking for seems to have overtaken. It's intangibles over tangibles in some ways, and
Mm.
I think Diamador Lenore actually really opened the door for that, because you take a guy like Diamador Lenore in the fifth round. You're not going to get the measurables. Like a guy like him, if he had the measurables, is going way earlier than that. But
Ambry Thomas.
Ambry Thomas, right? Or even Akello Witherspoon, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
second round, like guys like that. And so I guess Akello was third, but still, I think when a guy like Lenore comes in and he doesn't meet those height, weight, speed requirements, whatever it is, and he has the success that he has, it opens your eyes a little bit to, hey, like, we can have success with these types of guys. Let's look for the makeup more so than necessarily these measurables. And Robert Saleh knows too. DJ Reed is another good example.
Right.
Look at what he's done, the career that he's carved out for himself. That's one that I know John Lynch still kicks himself over the way that ended here. So I think they've certainly opened their eyes. And there's other positions where they are way more stringent on that, as we know. Looking at you, offensive line, offensive tackle, but yeah, certainly at corner, I think they've kind of opened their arms a little bit to just guys who fit what they're looking for from an intangible standpoint, more so than just measurables.